Okay, so let's start where we were. You read the article. Just start with that. Just have this repeat the beginning part of the conversation.
So I read the article from Warren Buffett, Bill
No,
Gates.
we said when you read my article. That's where you went.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I read your article on how you value a token, or what is the value of a token, or what is a token, how you compare that to equity,
Right.
shares. And I get the point you brought home, which was it's no different from a stock in terms of voting and other aspects. But the thing that we didn't touch on in that article is what's the value underlying of it.
It's a piece missing. Yeah, I know. And the one thought I've had since then is that there are models to value this, right? We just haven't. There will be models to value this, I should say. We just don't yet know which one, what model to use. But it's thinking about this, and maybe it's because I worked in the telecommunications industry for so long. But one of the things that's occurred to me is that the telephony model, maybe the mobile telephony model, with value per user, price per user, and granted that's based on how much of those people pay as opposed to how much they use. They also use minutes. So that there's something in that model where you have a massive number of users going into a very broad network. There's something that's sort of intellectually vaguely attractive to me about maybe therein lies the answer somewhere. I haven't thought it through yet, but that may be the missing piece, which is what is the formula that we're going to use to
But isn't that
apply
that
this?
whole model based on X number of users? Then you have how much each user pays equals the total revenue, whatever the gross margin is, whatever the profit margin.
Yeah, and it
equity value.
fails in this case directly. You can't directly apply it,
Okay.
right? The idea is what I keep telling everybody, right? The three things: the wisdom, experience, and knowledge you have from the fiat space. They all apply to the crypto space, but you have to be creative in terms of how you apply it.
Okay.
And I think there's the inspiration for the answer is there, not the answer, right? And I'm not. Maybe I'm full of crap, but it just seems to me that something along those lines. The reason I don't like these velocity alone models is they avoid the fundamental truth that if there is not some value there, be it utility of some type, it's worth nothing. No matter what the velocity is, it's a pump and dump. It's something that's transitory. It's not going to survive.
And that's what they're all harping on. The Warren Buffetts, Bill Gates, they keep bringing that example and saying, yes, we agree with the velocity, but it's a velocity of something that's worth nothing. It's no different than the hogs back in the day.
Right. I once had a trustee for a large trust consider investing in crypto. So he gave me a call. And he said a lot of these same things. This is almost a year ago now. Like this is, doesn't have this, it doesn't have the, doesn't provide this for the currency. It's like, wait, stop. My goal is not, and my obligation is not to defend cryptocurrency from all attacks, right? It doesn't have to be better. It just has to be in some way complementary. It just has to provide some incremental utility. So historically, the three things behind a currency were medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of measure. And I would add means of transferability. If nothing else, cryptocurrencies are a fabulous means of transferability.
Yeah.
And frankly, they're a good storage of wealth given what they're doing. But ignore all of that. Ignore trying to defend cryptocurrency, because that's the issue people get caught up in. I actually literally had a dream last night where I was sitting next to a guy who was attacking cryptocurrency, and I asked him a question. I never dreamt about cryptocurrency. And I asked him a question. I said, okay, what is the value of the dollar? He goes, well, the dollar we can trade into euros, trade into this. And so I remember from the dream, I put, okay, so we're going in circles here, right? And you love the circular logic behind crypto.
Right.
Or love it, you love to point it out. The reality is that the more you study crypto, the more you realize what assumptions you've been making about the fiat space that you previously didn't know you'd been making. So if you take a lot of the words of people who attack crypto, I won't pick on any single individual, and you look at the fiat space, they all apply. But they don't think that way, right? They've been born and raised, take Warren Buffett, you already mentioned him, 80 some odd years living in a
Right.
given system. It's difficult to expect somebody who invests in insurance companies and railroads and very fundamental, heavy asset base, PP&E, property, plant, and equipment based businesses to make this incredible, and things that insure it, to make this incredible leap to cryptocurrencies and not be able, it's not surprising that he doesn't second guess the dollar. Because, which is ironic with him, because he lived in the United States before August 15th, 1971, when the last vestiges of convertibility were eliminated. So what is it that backs the dollar? So rather than trying to say, here's perfection, crypto is here, let me make arguments to drag it to perfection, right? That's what everybody wants you to do.
Right.
That's not the issue. There is no perfection. Well, there maybe is from a theoretical
Also,
standpoint.
we want to know, here's what we've learned of how to value things in the fiat space.
Right.
Take those same metrics and tell us how they apply to the crypto space.
And maybe they don't.
And that's the thing that people.
But my point is different. Here is perfection.
Yeah.
Here is crypto,
Yeah.
right? In their eyes.
Yeah.
And in their eyes, fiat is here, but it's not. Fiat is here. And crypto, and then this was when I first heard about Bitcoin. I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of.
Right.
And looked at it, I looked at Ponzi schemes and Holland and everything else. And, the Dutch, the tulip craze. And it's like, okay, there's nothing terribly bad here.
Yeah.
And there's certainly some innovation. So I figured maybe it'll survive, was my conclusion myself. But in the process, I started looking at money, and I actually spent a week walking around in semi-shell shock because I realized that there's nothing that supports money. It's belief. That's all it is that supports money. Like, oh my God. So in my mind, when I started this, fiat was up here near perfection, and crypto was down here. So I studied crypto a lot, trying to understand. And so it moved up a little bit, mainly because there weren't negatives there,
Right.
and a couple of positives, but they're really theoretical at that point in time. But fiat just plunged, and I'm like, hey. And so I went back to this analogy I came up with because Cyprus gained its independence in 74 when some colonels invaded it, but it was after 71 and they created a new currency. Why is it 1.5 million people co-located on an island can create a totally brand new currency out of the air? They used the same name, it was a brand new currency. And 1.5 million people aren't co-located on the same island. Could do that. Because they have a central bank that can crank out as many dollars as it wants. And I'm all for quantitative easing, I'm not against that. But when you compare them, honestly, what fiat is versus what people think it is, and what crypto is, and again, versus what people think it is, sure, there are differences. Fiat has some better characteristics here, crypto has some better characteristics there, but there's not one that's a slam dunk over the other by a long shot.
Yeah.
And these guys who attack rat poison squared, for instance, they're no longer psychologically capable of objectively looking back at fiat currencies. It's in their blood. And I don't blame them for that. I understand it. And for some reason, despite this, I can be more flexible. But a lot of people who have been raised in a fiat economic system can't or don't want to make that leap.
Well, here's the thing that keeps jumping around for me. We have fiat, dollars, euros, yen.
Zimbabwean dollars.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Right? You have the currencies. Then people compare that to crypto as a cryptocurrency.
Right.
And then you have the Warren Buffetts that are more comparing equity to crypto, let's call it assets.
Right.
Or tokenization of companies and offerings. How I understand, and I think most people think separate the two categories. It's easier to understand the currency, fiat, to currency, crypto argument. Because like you said, what's it backed by? It's backed by faith. Okay? Well, if the whole world believes in Bitcoin, that's going to be more faith than any individual country currency, just because of the faith backing. Okay? So that's easy to understand.
As a quick point, I hadn't thought about this, but if you think about it, Bitcoin probably has a wider variety of backers than any currency except the US dollar, which is effectively the international currency.
I don't know how you
probably does that.
How do you
today.
quantify that?
Probably the people. I'm not sure either, but just off the top of my head, how many people from how many different countries use it? right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's more than the euro, the pound, the sterling, the yen, the renminbi, if you want the yuan, because there aren't a lot of people that use those on a daily basis, even though they're very important currencies.
Mm-hmm.
There's one global reserve currency, it's the US dollar, and if you measure how many people use the US dollar and how many countries on a given day, it's almost every country, right, and a lot of people. Bitcoin is probably as many countries, nearly, probably a few less.
Yeah.
But it on some days it may even be more people. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I doubt it's any lower than his second place, which is interesting.
And so that argument makes sense. There's definitely a need for a cryptocurrency. If you can be faster, more world spread.
And the emphasis on the
worldwide.
currency piece of it. Yeah.
Yes, that argument I think has been made, and I think that has been validated, and we'll see that more. Do we need 1,600 new cryptocurrencies?
Well, that's a problem. They're not current. They all aren't currencies.
They all aren't currencies.
And then you get to the second half.
second half, which is what I think the biggest problem in the blending of all this thing is. Warren Buffett saying, I don't even know if he directly said Bitcoin, maybe he did. Maybe he's a cryptocurrency, but the thing is,
Most people say Bitcoin when they're dumping on it.
right?
Take a look. Go ahead, keep going.
He's confirming Bitcoin to ownership in, See's Candy, ownership in Walmart, ownership
Right.
in Coca-Cola. That's the wrong analogy. It's not the same thing.
So I'm laughing. I look up Rat Poison Square and I get Orkin Pest Control in addition to Warren Buffett. Bitcoin. He said specifically Bitcoin.
So I think the fundamental problem actually is he doesn't understand what Bitcoin is. Because if he did, he would not be comparing it to equities. He'd be comparing it to the U.S. dollar. And he would say the U.S. dollar is better because I believe in the U.S. government more than all the miners mining Bitcoin.
All right.
And that's an argument that I don't think people could win.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. One of and Diamond did the same thing. He attacked Bitcoin, but people interpret it, said, "Oh, it's hypocritical because J.P. Morgan is working on at least three blockchain projects." And I thought to myself, well, it's not really hypocritical because you can definitely isolate BTC from the blockchain. I'm not sure whether Diamond was being so nuanced, but people were shellacking him with a very broad brush, much more than he deserved. I think what he said didn't make any sense, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean people interpreted it correctly. But, pardon me, but here, the issue with I'm sure with Diamond and with Buffett is they simply haven't done what they would usually do. Buffett is known for what? He's known for incredible due diligence of his company. If you read biographies of Buffett when he was 20 years old, when he was teens, he was doing incredible financial analyses of companies, and that's how he bases his investments. He's not done that in this case, except perhaps very superficially. And to your point, he doesn't really know what he's criticizing. But his frame of reference is here. He's got a conservative frame of reference in the fiat space. And so to move outside of the fiat space into this radical new world, which honestly isn't that radical when you analyze it. It's a very logical extension of the internet and financial services on the internet. It's much less, crypto is much less out there than many fiat people think it is.
Right.
But he's not taking the time to do the fundamental due diligence that he would do for a company that he wanted to buy. He gets a little bit into it and dismisses it. This is crazy. It says Rat Poison Square. It's like, I wonder if he's got an investment in Orkin, actually. It may have been an indirect compliment.
He's indirectly invested because he owns some overstock stock.
There you go.
No, I agree. But going back to their point of the equity versus crypto assets,
Right.
or tokens that are purely built as another means of securitization, which
Right.
I say
Right.
with quotes. But I think that's the thing that still is unknown.
No, it's the valuation. The piece that I wrote, I think, just says, okay, look, we're not comparing apples to grapefruit here.
Yes.
We're comparing apples to apples.
Right.
There are easy metrics or accepted metrics for equity, for shares of stock. There are not accepted metrics yet for crypto assets. But that doesn't mean when someone is paid to search, when someone is paid to provide the dimensions of a room for a virtual reality or augmented reality application, or when someone is paid to provide their GPU power on the net because there isn't enough overall GPU power for all the rendering that needs to be done in this day and age. When all of those, when you look at all of those things, you can't say that there's no utility. Right. So there clearly is utility. And there are lots of fraud projects without utility or just bad projects, not necessarily fraudulent. But there are certainly projects out there that there's obviously utility there. It's very, very clear there's utility.
Yes.
How much?
Yeah.
And that's where we don't yet have the metrics. But for some of them, they will come up and a market will take over. An advertiser is going to pay for tokens that people earn by searching because they can get advertisement on the search engine.
Yeah.
The cloud, the render companies that need to render and need GPU power, they will pay a certain amount that's dictated by market forces for the GPU.
Yeah.
There just aren't, so there clearly there will be traditional metrics that emerge into the crypto space or that merge into the crypto space.
Right.
But there aren't enough projects out there that are actually mature enough to figure this out. There is no doubt in my mind, I'm 100% certain, that we will come up with very concrete metrics for cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
That will clearly be based on fiat principles because they make sense, they're economics. I keep telling people psychology doesn't change. What they are is not yet known. So the question is, can one comfortably invest in something where you absolutely know in your bones, 100% certain that there is going to be value there, but you don't yet know the value, the metrics, the system that we use to measure that value. Mm-hmm. So do you want to do that, or would you want to wait until the metrics are clear and you can compare them very objectively versus a lot of subjectivity that's going on now, and then invest? It's a question of risk versus reward, right? There's enormous reward being made now from people investing in these projects, and a lot of it is, there's pump and dump there. There's panic in, there's panic out, fear versus FOMO, as we've discussed. But there is a lot of legitimate value there. We just don't yet know what it is. So we're on the cutting edge. There are always people who are comfortable investing on the cutting edge and people that are much more comfortable investing well later. And they both have an equal right to exist. But the people who are trying to tar the entire space based on a relatively superficial analysis of one small aspect of it, the opinions just aren't even really worth addressing. And it's unfortunate that some very respected people in the fiat space have not taken the time and trouble to really dig in, because I am sure that their opinions would be much more nuanced if they were to do that.
Maybe.